Hello! In this video, we will learn how to import roster data into your surveys in mWater and Solstice. Rosters are very convenient when you need to answer questions multiple times, especially when you don't know how many times you may need to do that for a given survey. For example, if you are conducting a household survey and you need to interview each household member, and there's a variable amount of household members in each household you visit. So let's begin by taking a look at an example survey. So here I am in mWater with a demonstration roster survey. I have regular questions here, and this example tracks repairs done at schools for, say, toilets. So we have a site question that links this survey to a school in mWater, and then a text field that allows the person filling this out to enter what repair was done. Now, there are two ways to create rosters in mWater, so we're covering both here. We have a roster matrix, which is basically a table of rows and columns where you can add as many roster entries as you need. So here we have a spare part catalog where the person conducting the repairs can just enter what spare parts did they use and how many of them did they use. You don't know that in advance, so this list can be as long as you like. So this is a roster matrix. We have a second roster in this survey, which tracks the amount of time spent. And this is a roster group, which is just a sort of separate box within the survey. And in that box, you can add questions as you like. And those questions will then repeat, much more like normal questions in a regular survey. So if we go to the preview and take a look at what this would be like. For the roster group, I can add one worker, spend 2 hours, another worker, spend 3 hours, and so on and so forth. So this is a basic example of a roster survey. But let's say that we have some historical data or data from somewhere else, and we want to import it into mWater. And there's something special about importing rosters that we need to take into account. The basic flow is the same as when you're importing data into mWater. First we must make sure we have a deployment somewhere that can take the responses in. And then we go to survey responses to get our import template. We can get it from this import responses pop-up. We'll get the template. Now let's jump to it. I've filled out a demonstration one. So here the difference of roster data in surveys comes to the fore. On the first line, we put the question entries for the main questions in the survey. But on the second line, we start filling out that first roster, the roster matrix, here. And that's on a different row because we can have many rows of this. We don't know in advance. So we can't just put it on one row because that can't contain the possibility of having 10 or 20 responses. So this roster here, first roster, we add a whole row to the import. But what do we do with the second roster? Well, we don't put it on the same row either. We add another row still. So for the roster group question, we've put it on a third row, both under the main response. So there's a hierarchy here. But in this case, we put it further down. So we have this kind of staggered import structure. The main response, things that are outside the roster, and then anything that belongs to the roster, and as many rows as you need. So in our second import, for the second response, there are two different types of spare parts used. And we could keep adding workers here, right? And as many as we need. Like this. So one way to think about this is that a roster is almost like a survey within a survey, because a survey can have as many responses as you need, and a roster can have as many responses as you need within a survey. So that's why you can't flatten it out into one row only. And at the moment, the way we handle this in mWater and Solstice is that you have this kind of structure. So let's try importing this. Let's go back to our import, select our deployment, and choose our import file. We'll now import the responses, and they've come through. Now when we refresh our view, we'll see that the link to school is there, the repair, and roster, this has one entry, this first one, and the second one has 2 entries for roster 1, the filter and the funnel, and 2 entries for roster 2. So this is how it works. It's worth, when you try a roster import, it may be good to try and do it as the simplest way. Just do one response and one set of rosters. And for each roster you add, you'll need to have more rows staggered down further on. Another tip for understanding roster imports is to manually fill out your survey and a roster and then export responses. You could even export it for re-importing. And when you open that up, you should see the right kind of structure. There we go. So the export will already give you the right kind of stagger structure. So depending on the structure of your survey, with the rosters filled out, you'll get a very good view of how it should be filled out. So that basically covers it. Rosters are very convenient and have great uses in certain cases. The import just needs to have this extra step taken into account. And the extra tip I have for you is that fill out some manually for your survey, export that so that you get the roster data, and then in your spreadsheet you will see exactly how the system expects to see that roster data. So there we go. If you have questions or you get stuck, you can reach us at problems@mWater.co or info@mWater.co. And otherwise, that's all I've got for you today. I hope this was useful, and have a great day.